to bust up a sophisticated international gang of jewel thieves. And to Belize in Central America, where we took down a disgusting American pedophile trying to hide in paradise.
Snyder, did you know you were on America's Most Wanted?
Now your tips have sent me here to Brazil on the hunt for another pedophile, one of the most wanted creeps on the planet. We first started looking for this lowlife earlier this year, when I told you about a very brave young man's painful confession. The quiet seaside city of Deerfield Beach, Florida, is a great place to be a kid. Lots of fun in the sun, playing games, or just doing what kids do. But growing up here became an unimaginable nightmare for Robert Daly. That's because he spent much of his childhood harboring an awful secret that someone was sexually molesting him.
He would lay me down on the bed, and, you know, he would unzip my pants, and he would say stuff to me like, oh, I like it when, you guys, when you're so young, I don't even like hair on your legs.
He was too frightened to tell anyone, and making a shameful secret even more shocking was who he says his abuser was. The kind of man society tells kids to trust. A pastor named Kenneth Craig.
He was very, very scary. He was a beast. He just wanted more and more and more. It was getting out of control.
Robert says Craig paid him and a handful of other 10 to 12-year-old boys hundreds of dollars each time to be videotaped performing sex acts on each other and on him.
Total? Excess of $30,000, at least. Not including everything that he gave us, drugs, presents.
He says that included video games and alcohol. Anything to keep the young boys happy and quiet. In 1998, more than a year into the abuse, Robert's uncle noticed disturbing changes in his nephew's behavior and became concerned enough to tell the police. Robert was with Craig when cops moved in.
The next thing that I remember is police were banging on all the doors and all the windows, and Kenny was like, listen, just tell them that I'm your father and you're my sons.
Craig's arrest brought Robert relief, but he had a hard time dealing with his feelings of guilt.
It was just a really difficult time.
At least he knew Craig would face justice, but Craig would take that away from him too. When Craig's girlfriend bailed him out, he vanished. For years, investigators could find no trace of him, and the case languished. But it heated up again when Deputy U.S. Marshal Charlie Feely was assigned to hunt Craig down. We've worked on many high-profile cases with Charlie. And what he learned about him propelled Craig to the top of his personal most wanted list.
We understood that we were dealing with a man whose life revolved around gaining access to children. We believe, based on the investigation, that there could be upward of several hundred victims.
Charlie discovered that Craig had been arrested in Louisiana in the 1990s for molesting kids at a church where he was the pastor. He also learned Craig had ties to South America. The veteran manhunter tracked him down to a hideout in Brazil. The local authorities there arrested Craig, and Charlie waited for the call to go pick up his fugitive. But the call he got wasn't the one he expected.
He was actually released from the Brazilian jail in Rio, and no one knew that he had been released. The embassy didn't know, Interpol didn't know, nobody knew.
That was in 2008. Kenneth Craig hasn't been seen since. That's why Robert Daly has decided to push his fears aside, come out of the shadows, and fight for the justice that he's been denied for so long.
And no matter what I do, it's not going to go away. As long as this guy is out on the street, there's going to be no closure, for me or anybody else that he's hurt. This guy needs to go down. He needs to be caught, and he needs to stop what he's doing.
And that's why we're here in Rio, to make sure that happens. This is Mike Brown, the Regional Security Officer for the Diplomatic Security Service. Mike, we aired this in February, and we got a tip that he was here in Rio. Tell me about that tip.
Fact is, we've determined the location of the fugitive Kenneth Craig here in Ipanema. He was at a location between the Lagoa, or lake, and the beach, and we've determined that this is a street where he was living on. We've also determined a new name that he was using, a false name by the name of Jean Dare.
The Brazilian authorities had him for over a year. Now, when he got out, why didn't he leave Brazil?
Well, John, Brazil is a very multicultural, diverse nation. It's a place where someone can blend in very easily, and Craig did until now.
What happens this time? Will he get out on a technicality?
John, I can assure you that the Diplomatic Security Service is determined to ensure that Craig is arrested, found here in Brazil, and sent back to the United States.
He's a really bad guy, and we're going to be looking for a lot of other bad guys tonight. But where are we going to go next, Mike?
John, I'm going to show you a location, a street, where the fugitive was living over the past year here in Ipanema.
Let's get busy.
You bet.
Why don't you come over here and sit on my lap?
If you tell your mom this, I'll kill you.
Adrian Cruz is a perfect example of someone who should be locked up and never see the light of day.
Mike, tell me where we are right now.
John, we're in a street in Ipanema where our investigation has led us as to the location of Kenneth Craig over the past year. This is where he was living.
Now, Craig must have felt pretty comfortable here.
He did. He was frequenting bars and restaurants on this street. There's a lot of people. It's an easy place to hide in. And down this way, there's an internet cafe where he sent emails from.
Now, you got a good clue from that internet cafe.
Absolutely. We found out in our investigation that Craig had actually written a book about his life on the run.
This creep had the nerve to write a book?
It's incredible what he did.
Was it ever published?
No, it was not published, John.
I gotta read this. I lived 14 years on the run until I was finally captured by Interpol. I went through a long extradition process and finally won the case and was granted asylum in Brazil.
But I'll tell you something, John, he's dead wrong. He was not granted asylum here. Right now in Brazil, there's an active arrest warrant for his arrest. Here in the United States, he's also wanted by Interpol in Europe. He's wanted on 3 continents.
Well, all night we're gonna be following those clues. But right now I need your help to catch a guy who's a parent's worst nightmare. The year was 2004, the place Phoenix, Arizona. Adrian Cruz had been in the U.S. for about 10 years after immigrating here illegally.
Him selling ice cream, a lot of the kids were interested.
Inside.
If I had a truck like this, I'd eat all the ice cream.
Has anyone ever told you you look just like your mother?
Uh-huh.
But, you're much prettier.
Can I have my ice cream now?
Sure, pick it up right there.
Aren't you gonna turn on the music?
Why don't you come over here and sit on my lap? I'll let you drive.
No, it's okay. You're driving too fast!
Shut up!
¿Qué pasas, mija? ¿Qué pasa? If you tell your mom this, I'll kill you. You understand that? Now stop being a crybaby!
The way that Adrian went about this was really kind of insidious. The level of violence, telling the little girl, stop crying.
And when Cruz's brave little victim finally summoned the courage to say what Cruz had done to her, raping her and getting her pregnant, authorities were called in. And fortunately, Cruz was arrested before he could hurt anyone else.
Adrian Cruz is a perfect example of someone who should be locked up and never see the light of day.
After Cruz pled guilty to sexual contact with a minor, he got that life sentence with no chance of parole until he served a minimum of 35 years. But if you think that was Cruz's only brutal sexual attack, think again. While Cruz was serving out his sentence, in 2008, Phoenix police linked his DNA to 2 unsolved violent sexual assaults that took place before his rape of a 9-year-old child. Maricopa County prosecutors went after Cruz for these violent attacks, hoping to add more years onto his sentence. And in 2009, the case went to trial. Cruz had nothing to lose.
You'll see a lot of the guys, if they have multiple years that they're doing, it's just like, hey, I'm going to go take a vacation for a few months and stand trial for something else.
On February 17, 2009, Cruz was nearing the end of his trial. During a lunch break, he was left shackled in a room on the 7th floor of the Maricopa County Courthouse.
He'd like to use a lot of hair lotion and used it on the handcuffs and slipped his wrists out. Being up there for the past couple of months, he might have been a little familiar with the layout of the offices. He walked deeper into the offices where the secretary is, and essentially right next door to her office was the judge's chambers. He walked into the judge's chambers. Obviously, the staff had gone to lunch, saw the judge's jacket, grabbed the leather jacket, put it on. We have video footage of him exiting the office area of the court. The jacket that he took was actually the jacket that belonged to the judge that was hearing his case.
And here's video footage of Cruz leaving the courthouse. As soon as authorities realized Cruz was gone, the building was locked down and units were dispatched all over Phoenix. But by then, Cruz was long gone. Authorities classify Cruz as a very dangerous serial rapist. Cruz has this distinctive tattoo on his left hand and this large scar that stretches from his back to his abdomen. Cruz speaks English and Spanish and could be in the U.S. or Mexico. Wherever he is, let's bring him in tonight before he strikes again. If you know where Adrian Cruz is, call us at 1-800-CRIME-TV.
We're going to come around a rock right now. There it is, right there. This is one way someone can hide from the authorities.
And it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Tonight, the urgent search goes on for any information about what happened to Lauren Spierer, the 20-year-old college student who disappeared in Bloomington, Indiana on Friday, June 3rd.
Good evening, America's Most Wanted.
You responded to our story about Lauren's disappearance last week by flooding our hotline with tips and gave investigators new leads to follow. Several callers talked about a white truck seen in the area when Lauren vanished. Cops say they've found surveillance footage of the vehicle. It could be a 4-door mid-2000s model Chevrolet Silverado or Colorado with a short bed and upgraded rims. There's some kind of company logo on the doors.
Vehicle enhancement or video.
Tonight, cops need your help to find this truck and its driver so they can see if he knows anything about Lauren's disappearance.
What are you waiting for? What you know might help us. It might be the key today that's going to make the difference.
Lauren's family is desperate for answers and praying that you can help provide them. So if you know anything about the disappearance of Lauren Spierer, call 1-800-CRIME-TV. And remember, I guarantee you could remain anonymous. Just make the call.
John, I'd like to introduce to you Wallace Ponches. He's a senior inspector from the Rio de Janeiro Federal Police, and he's been assisting us with this fugitive investigation.
Glad to meet you, Wallace, and thank you for all your help on this case.
Glad to meet you, John. We are trying to get this guy. We don't want him living in Brazil.
Wallace, thank you for all your help. You're going to help get justice for those boys.
We will catch him.
Let's do it. John, as a result of your last show, with the tip that came in, I'm going to take you to the location where we believe that tip led us.
Let's saddle up.
John, right now we're flying over Copacabana Beach, and we're heading to the last known location where the fugitive Kenneth Craig was last sighted. Copacabana is a very affluent, upscale neighborhood. We're going to come around a rock right now. There it is, right there. It's a large favela called Cantagalo.
What is a favela?
John, Rio is full of favelas like this. It's a big contrast between the have and have-nots.
So you go from the beach and this affluence to that slum on the hillside.
That's right. There's a very light police presence inside, so this is one way and someone can hide from the authorities.
That it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Absolutely.
Now we're on our way back and we're gonna hit the streets. But in the meantime, I need your help to find another guy who really needs to join his buddies behind bars.
What has taken place out on the streets, they know that the information is there. It's just a matter of time before it surfaces.
Who wanted him killed?
John, we are in the Cantagalo favela that we saw from the helicopter. As you can see how densely populated it is here, and this is a perfect place for a fugitive to hide.
Boy, he could get lost in here forever.
John, there's probably in excess of 25,000 people in here.
That live right in these walls.
Absolutely. This goes up the side of a mountain, and there's only a few ways in and out of this place. Ele se chama Kenneth Craig. Será que vocês já viram ele? Não? Pedófilo.
Okay, keep an eye out for him.
Esse é o Sr. Walsh do TV programa America's Most Wanted.
Não, senhor.
Tá, tudo bom.
Let's ask these guys right over here, Mike.
Brasil da lei dos Estados Unidos.
This is a bad guy that hurts children, little boys.
He's disfarçado. Okay. He says this man might come to the funk party on Friday night here in the favela.
Because he's also a musician and plays in bands here.
Obrigado.
Do you think if this guy was living and hiding in these houses here, that these people would tell the police that he's here?
They may or may not. But that's why we have to come up here and see them personally. Well, he's blending in because he speaks Portuguese fluently, and he's going to give them another story about his life. They're not going to know the truth until you came down here from the States and told them the truth about his life.
Mike, I know that you and the DSS and the Brazilian police are never going to give up until you find Kenneth Craig. Just like a brave dad back home who's never going to give up until he gets justice. Now, I've walked in that man's shoes. We've got to help him find his son's killer. This is no ordinary rodeo. These cowboys are actually hardened prisoners from Louisiana's infamous Angola prison. The rodeo is an example of how Angola, once called the bloodiest prison in America, has transformed itself. Now there's a strict honor system that rewards inmates for good behavior.
Prison works best when people have incentives to do the right thing. Okay, here we go. To participate in the rodeo, you've got to be an A-plus offender. You'd have to show that you're doing things to make yourself a better person.
This concept of prisoners being cooperative intrigues one man watching the rodeo on this day. David McClellan has been trying to solve the horrific murder of a young man in 2004. There were no witnesses and little evidence, but Dave is praying that Louisiana convicts like these might give him some answers, because the young man who was murdered was David's son, John, killed in New Orleans, the victim of a robbery gone bad. John McClellan studied math at Boston College, but his true aspiration was to be a professional bartender. So after earning his degree, he moved from Boston to New Orleans, where he found work tending bar in the city's famous French Quarter. His spirited personality quickly gained him many friends.
If you're sitting there by yourself and you don't know anybody in town, it's good to have that bartender to talk to. And he always knew everybody.
Johnny Mac was always, one for
making things light. So
he came in to me and says, I met this great guy working on Bourbon Street. We got to get him. We got to get him.
On the night of July 16th, 2004, after finishing his shift, John stopped in at a watering hole not far from his home. David McClellan has retraced his son's steps that night many times. Around 2 a.m., John left the bar and walked a few blocks to his house.
Based upon what the police said, an unknown assailant jumped out from behind an oleander bush and demanded his money. John said he didn't have any, and he was shot multiple times. He was fortunate enough to have with him his cell phone. He called 911 himself.
John was rushed to a nearby hospital, where he was in a coma for nearly 4 weeks. When he came out of it, he couldn't remember anything about the attack, but his dad was thankful he was still alive.
I was optimistic. I'd been in a coma for a month. Things started looking up.
But then, an infection began spreading through John's body.
He wasn't reacting well to the antibiotics, and I saw his toes and fingers were turning blue, loss of circulation, and there wasn't anything they could do about that.
John McClellan died on September 22, 2004. Detectives knew they were facing a tough homicide case. They had almost nothing to go on, but their investigation came to a complete halt in August 2005. As Katrina's waters rose and the city fell into chaos, the New Orleans Police Department lost years of evidence in countless cases, including John McClellan's murder. Since then, David has become the driving force in the quest for new clues that can tell him what happened to his son. It's that journey that led him inside the walls of Louisiana's penitentiaries.
Thank you.
First stop on this trip, Hunt Correctional Facility for Women.
Well, I'm not shy, but I don't enjoy being up here, but I'm asking for your help.
Dave is politely persistent. He understands how things work. He looks under every rock trying to find a clue.
Hopefully what I'm hearing is correct, but I believe that...
At the men's prison just down the road, David's story seems to get through, and inmates try to give him some insight into what may have happened to his son.
Was any money taken from him?
No.
Wasn't no money taken?
No money taken from him.
Anything of value was taken from him?
Not to my knowledge.
In New Orleans? And he was shot? No, I'm not buying that.
Who wanted him killed? Because just like he's saying, I'm from New Orleans too, and if they come for your money, when they wet you up, they're taking your money. They're taking your shoes. If you got a good coat, they're taking that too. If you got a hat that look good, they're taking it.
Could the prisoners be right? Could this have been more than a robbery? It's another path for David to follow.
They know what has taken place out on the streets. They know that the information is there. It's just a matter of time before it surfaces.
He takes what he's found back to the investigators, hoping it'll lead to the break he's been praying for.
I don't sense a vengeful nature in Dave McClellan. What I sense in him is a desire to see justice done, offender or offenders brought to justice so that they can pay for what they did to his son and also not be a problem for society anymore.
Something will happen. I have faith that it will. I'm never giving up.
We won't either. So if you know anything about the murder of John McClellan in New Orleans 2004, call us right now at 1-800-CRIME-TV. God bless your strength, Dave. My prayers are with you. Took 27 years to find the killer of my son, and I'm praying we can end your pain tonight. Now, Mike, back to this Kenneth Craig creep. Give our viewers some clues about this guy.
Well, John, he's lived here in Rio for several years as an English instructor. He should be readily identifiable with his features, and he wears glasses. We know he likes to eat pizza and Molson beer.
Well, I know you're not going to give up. 14 years to be on the run and live in this beautiful city is way too much.
We're going to keep at it, John.
This is a first-time partnership for us as well, and I guess joining forces like that will help find to catch this guy.
The most popular TV show in Brazil is Fantástico. It airs live for 2 hours every Sunday night on the Globo network. Fantástico takes a close look at the biggest issues facing Brazil, including hunting down the most wanted fugitives in the country. Now they're joining with us to take Kenneth Craig down. I met with Zeca Camargo, one of the hosts of Fantástico, to talk about our international manhunting partnership. Zeca,
hey there.
Pleasure to meet you.
Good to see you here as well.
Thank you for having us in your house.
Come on, thank you for coming here.
And teaming up with Fantástico.
Well, this is a first-time partnership for us as well, and I guess joining forces like that will help find to catch this guy.
You have a huge audience in Brazil.
We're talking about 40 to 50 million people every Sunday evening.
How do you think people are going to react when they find out that this guy's wanted for molesting many little boys?
I guess from our previous experiences that the audience will respond very strongly to this, trying to give some hints where he is and trying to find him wherever he is in Brazil.
And I hope your viewers know that all they have to do is make the call. They can remain anonymous.
This case is specifically, by the strong story he tells, I think will move people to respond this way.
I think the world, and particularly Brazil, is going to be a much smaller place for Kenneth Craig.
Hope so.
He's been out there a long time, and I really appreciate this powerful partnership.
Thank you for coming, G.
Now, we're going to tell you about some other international fugitives, including another guy who's appeared both on America's Most Wanted and Fantástico, a guy I've been looking for a very long time, Dan Hyers. In December 2002, Dan Hyers was a police officer in North Charleston, South Carolina. When Hyers was charged with this disgusting crime, his wife, Mila, remained by his side while he waited to go to trial. On March 15, 2005, Hyers was supposed to be back in court, but he never showed up. Police say Hyers shot Mila in the back of the head while she slept, then ran off. He hasn't been seen since. Hyers' vehicle was found abandoned in the border town of Laredo, Texas, but there was no sign of him. He may have fled to Mexico, Brazil, or the northwestern United States. Listen carefully to... According to a federal indictment, this crew would pose as DEA agents and rip off dope dealers throughout the Windy City, confiscating drugs, electronics, and any other items they saw fit. Agents say Hicks, a 30-year police vet, is the ringleader and the most dangerous of the bunch. He's got extensive firearms training and sometimes uses the alias Clarence Jenkins. Cops say he could be in Brazil, but his trail is gone cold. So if you know where he's hiding, call our hotline right now at 1-800-CRIME-TV. Now, before we go, I want to thank a lot of people that helped us get this very special show done. Our good friends at the Diplomatic Security Service, always the U.S. Marshals, which have been our partners for years, the Brazilian National Police, who have said that they're going to catch this guy, Kenneth Craig, and he's going to go back and face what he deserves. And the people here at Globo TV and this Fantástico show, their great show, and let us use their studio. So we want to thank them and the good people of Rio de Janeiro, one of the most beautiful places I've been. Now, we may not see each other for a while, at least for a couple of months. Fox says that we'll be back with specials in the fall, and I look forward to those. 23 years I've been hosting this show. We've caught almost 1,200 people in 35 countries. The thing I'm the most proud of, we brought almost 50 missing people home, including Elizabeth Smart, America's Most Wanted founder, and brought her home alive. Something you should be proud of. respect. You've helped me change the world. You've helped me save lives. So until I see you, I always say it, you can make a difference. You've made a huge difference. I know what it's like to wait years for justice. You've saved lives and gotten people justice. Until then, please stay safe, stay strong. God bless you, and thank you for all your support.